and it's a rather spooky segment. So it's time to get spooky as the Bigwig crew indulges in some super scary games to celebrate Halloween.
Halloween.
Yeah. Tell us about your super scary game.
I played
to God.
I played a very extremely scary game. So scary in the tradition of all slasher films, was released itself on Halloween 2 years ago to the day this game was released. And that scary game is Luigi's Mansion 3.
Luigi's Mansion 3.
The second time we've mentioned it today because the Lego is coming out for this game.
So, foreshadowing, that's what that was.
So I bought this game, I think on release from memory, and okay, so this is what happened. I played it a little bit, and then my son at the time, who's obviously 2 years younger, found it way too scary. And for some reason I thought, this is kind of like a funny game to play with him. And yeah, it just freaked him out. So it is spooky. There you go. It can be spooky.
Well, it is for a 3-year-old, yeah.
Hey, don't dox him. No, no, I think he was 2 at the time. So yeah, and when I first played it, I was like, okay, yeah, it's pretty decent. I never really clicked with the GameCube Luigi's Mansion, and then probably less so Dark Moon. I played a bit of that, maybe a couple of hours of that on the 3DS. I guess, now people have to refer to it as Luigi's Mansion 2. And yeah, having jumped back into this for this week, I really love this game. Like, this game is pretty awesome. Like,
it's a really cool game, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely pays to crack through this game a little bit if you're not 100% clicking with it instantly. Like, for me, when I first started playing, I'm like, okay. I keep playing it, and I was like, okay, I want to try to finish it. I'm probably, I'd say 80% the way through the game. Like, it's pretty clear with, in terms of the structure of the game. And yeah, it's just a really awesome game, highly recommended to people, with young kids as well. Like, obviously not 2-year-olds maybe, like in my case, but more like a 4-year-old or 5-year-old and beyond. And there's really cool like mechanics in this game. And what I really enjoy about it is, you've got a very set grouping of mechanics pretty early in the game, including the new addition in this game, which is Luigi, which can be a co-op character. An awesome name. Love the name. Makes me laugh every time. And, just like the dynamic between those two characters, it's pretty cool what they've done there. Like, Luigi has some abilities that Luigi doesn't. And just, they explore it really well in a really true Nintendo way. I think Next Level made this game, but it's got a very Nintendo vibe all over it in terms of its puzzle solving. And it's just a really like fun game to play and, very easy to pick up and go and sort of go, okay, I'll spend half an hour with this game. If you're watching the YouTube clip of the potty, we're just seeing the scraper mode. So like when they released the DLC to this game, it was all multiplayer DLC. I find this so bizarre that they've done this. I feel like everyone would want more story DLC for this game. I don't know anyone who's talking about this game from a multiplayer perspective. And they've always tried to push that angle with this game, which I thought was a bit weird. And, I definitely think with the Nintendo Switch Online, one of the first things that they'll release, if they do additional DLC, they'll release like the DLC for this game for free, because I'm sure no one buys it. But going back to the game, like as I said, really love it. Love the writing in the game, just like the structure of it and everything. It's really awesome. And yeah, really enjoying it, and definitely will finish it. I will say one thing just quickly, Swinny, is I do not see myself completing this game. So
bummer.
using the completionist style of, complete it versus finish it, I think I'll be a finish it type of game, which is unusual for me with Nintendo games like this.
It's also a hell of a looker. Like
it looks really good.
We've kind of gotten used to the fact that a lot of current day Nintendo games aren't going to be that technically impressive from a visual standpoint. Now, I know this is very different in what it has to achieve and render versus, an open world game, but I think it just goes to show that the Switch can actually be impressive with, its visuals sometimes. So.
Yeah, and that's the art style, right? So, it's the same to me as Breath of the Wild, where I think that game looks awesome and stacks up against a lot of PS4 releases because of its art style and consistency with it. But having said that, with the OLED, up there with Astral Chain, Tetris Effect Connected, this game, And Metroid Dread, to be fair, like they're just really awesome games to play on the OLED because the colors are so vibrant in this game, and there's lots of blacks and darks and just like, you know, all the kind of contrasting colors. It just really pops on the OLED. And I've like totally acclimatized myself to the OLED now. Whenever I see the real normal Switches now, it's disgusting. Like I can't go back. Like there's no way I can go back. And
OLED snub.
I could not go back. I could not get like a Switch Lite either. I don't think. I think it would be like nah, it just wouldn't look right. So that's me. I will finish this game, but I will not complete it because there seems to be a lot to do in this game, and I'm just like, it's really fun, but it's like a solid like 7 or 8 out of 10. It's not one of those games like Metroid Dread. I'll probably go back to Metroid Dread, to be honest, and try to do the under 4 hours for hard mode. So that's me.
Jeez,
Mike,
good luck.
going to you.
Over to me. Cool. So the game that I've been playing is Outlast. Well, I played a couple of games, but the first one was Outlast. Specifically on the Switch, because I wanted to be able to do it from bed with headphones on, because it's the kind of game that I think you want to immerse yourself in that experience that way. It originally actually came out all the way back in 2013, so it's not a recent game by any means, but I never actually got into it. And I'm a bit of a fan of the genre, in the sense that I've played most of the Amnesia games, although I haven't completed all of them. Alien Isolation is still, to this day, one of my favorite games of all time. So if you guys haven't played it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's on my to-do list.
It's a really, really brilliant game. It's a gem of a game in so many ways, because I actually think I'm the only person out of my entire group of known friends that's played that game, which is a bit strange. But anyway, so with Outlast, I have no idea how far into the game I am. I don't know much about it. I didn't want any spoilers. I didn't look up how long this game takes to finish or anything like that. But I'm a little bit of the way into it, and you know, so far it's kind of what I expected. Again, in the same sort of vein as Alien Isolation, there's a lot of suspense building. There's a lot of scripted scares. There's a lot of stealth, because much like a lot of the games in the genre, you're quite powerless. You don't have guns. You don't have anything to really defend yourself with. You're running away a lot of the time. You're hiding a lot of the time. And it's what makes the game, I think, what it is. It's a really cool in that sense. Likewise, I don't know if we have any footage for it, but I'll talk about it anyway.
I just want to mention something about Atlas quickly.
Of course.
Well, two things actually. First of all, yes, Indigo, I checked if that footage was age-gated or not for our B-roll, even though it probably should be age-gated.
Pretty full-on game, is all I can say.
We should just quickly say, like, just to bring the audience in, so the way it works on YouTube, weirdly, because we got flagged one time for a video, and we went back, and it was like, this video isn't age-gated that we've sourced it from.
It was Assassin's Creed movie trailer.
Yeah. And then YouTube, like, to their credit, actually said, well, okay, good point. Right? Like, we flagged your video. Someone's flagged it manually, weirdly enough. And then, yeah, they went back and they said no. So I thought of that when you sent it through. I was like, shit, I was going
to interrupt, but I'm like, no, I'll wait for Mike to finish what he's saying. And the second thing is, you could not pay me to play this game.
Why?
I've actually seen a lot of Outlast in the past. And that game looks absolutely terrifying. So
it is.
Swinny, so
good jump scares.
I'm actually the same as you. Like, I played a little bit of, like, even the demo for Resident Evil Village, which we might talk about soon. That scared the shit out of me, even the demo, right? And I played a bit of Final Fantasy VII, and I'm like, I can't play this game. This game's scaring the hell out of me, right?
Really?
But I'm a good sport about it, Swinny. I feel like if someone dared me, okay, finish Resident Evil 7 or play Resident Evil 7 VR, I would do it, right? Yeah. But I feel like no matter what, like, what would have to happen with the show or something like that for you to go, yeah, okay, I'll play Resident Evil 7 VR?
Oh no, not VR. Like, the thing is,
so
like, Resident Evil games,
so, like, if we had 1 million subscribers on our YouTube channel, you wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Let's look. I'm sure at some point there's a tipping point. But but what I'm saying
that's how we get in.
You could not, like, pay me to play a game like Outlast because it's not all what I want from a video game. Like, I'm just not into horror, in that kind of horror. I like thrillers and stuff. But
Hmm.
anyway, that's all I just wanted to say. And I wanted to
Fair
give
enough.
you a flag that it wasn't each game that I played. So-
Yeah, no, and by the way, the game is, other than the gory bits, it's I can't even talk about some of the stuff that's in
Yeah.
the game. It's
There's some-
pretty bad.
Yeah, there's some really gross stuff in that game.
Really gross stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
But-
Resident
but-
Evil.
So just quickly on well, on the whole genre in general, I love those kind of games, and I tend to play them in. I don't play them during the day because I think it ruins the experience. If I play this, I like to play it properly, and I play them at night with headphones on, dark room, and it all stemmed from an experience I had when I was, oh gosh, still back in high school, and I got Aliens versus Predator 2, and I played as the Marine, and Harvey Norman had this clearance. I wouldn't even call it a VR headset. I think I told you guys the story before. It was basically, it looked like a VR headset, and it just had these prisms. And somehow with the CRT, it kind of gave you a more immersive experience because it would kill off your peripheral vision, and you just have the actual game that you're focusing on with headphones on. Dudes, I reckon my heart went to like 180 beats per minute at least in that game, where I actually had to physically put it down. I was by myself. I was about 13 or 14 or whatever the hell it was. And it was one of the scariest experiences I've ever had. The thing is, though, I've been so desensitized because I've played so many games after that, where I don't really get that feeling anymore. I don't get that same level of scare. I still get jump scares because we all do. It's impossible because you can't predict that kind of stuff. But to me, I enjoy the experience of getting into those weird, creepy games. Now, the one experience that, interestingly enough, into God, I didn't find anywhere near as scary, at least not yet, as far as I am into the game, is Resident Evil Village. So started playing that one as well. I've been meaning to play it because I played Resident Evil 7, finished it, loved it. Only ever experienced a little bit of the VR on PSVR, and it was pretty damn sweet, amazing experience. But Village so far has been excellent. I think I love the new direction that the games have gone into. Bearing in mind that I think I've played most of the Resident Evil games that have come out since the original one, way back when, and even before that, Alone in the Dark and all those games that it kind of predated Resident Evil, I played as well. But the direction that it's gone into now, it's a first-person survival horror that still has the shooting elements, but it's balanced in such a way that you're not overpowered. You're always the underdog. Good jump scares, excellent graphics, awesome location, and it's set in East Europe in a particular. Again, not to dox my people are gonna know. But it is fascinating. The only thing that ruins the immersion a little bit is I'm playing it and I'm like, okay, so they talk about local things in the local language, but then they have signs in English and freaking labels in English and a bunch of shit, and I'm like, it's a weird mishmash. And I couldn't change voices to the local dialect because that would have been doubly cool with subtitles and stuff.
I can take the
amazing
voices,
game.
right? Like that they're in English, but I'm kind of with you. I don't like when there's not localized signs.
It's weird. It's kind of there was this it took me out of the experience a little bit actually seeing them.
I think it depends if the signs are just there for visual or if they're actually also there to guide the player, because then that changes, I think, how you have
Of course, yeah.
that.
Sure.
I mean, this particular sign that I'm thinking of is quite early on, and that's the first one that I noticed, and it was to guide you towards there's a workshop, this is where this blah blah blah. But it still kind of just felt a bit weird because the whole rest of the world is so crafted to immerse you into it, and then but anyway, minor thing. Other than that, and I can't ruin the story, I can't ruin anything about the game itself, but it's a fantastic game so far. Absolutely love it.
Cool. And just a shout out for anyone, Resident Evil Code Veronica X HD is currently free as a Games of Gold, so that'll, if anyone's interested, that's backwards compatible on Xbox Series and all that stuff. So
Still so strange with the Resident Evil, because you're right, like about the phases, but that the best-selling Resident Evil game is not the one that you would expect. Like everyone thinks like Resident Evil 2,
Resident
1,
Evil 6,
4,
isn't it?
7, but it's 5 and 6.
Five.
in that
5 and
order
6.
are the
Yeah,
best
I can-
sellers. Like what?
I can
They're
kind
like
of
almost the
see
most
why it'd be
hated
five, yeah.
of the series.
I thought 4 would be the biggest seller, especially given how many platforms it's on now.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, no, it's going gangbusters, Resident Evil again. And you're right, like it's like the new phase of it, so
And
it's cool to see.
They just announced the DLC. There's some free DLC on the way as well. So
Awesome.
Nice. All right, well over to you, Swinny, to round up the spooky, and you're gonna play a very spooky game.
yeah, so I do like. We all had different kind of almost like takes on the mission to play a spooky Halloween game.
That wasn't what I said, but okay, whatever.
Well, we're playing games for
I think
Halloween.
it's really cool what we picked.
I picked what I feel is the most fitting game for a Halloween special, which is a game set on Halloween where you actually go trick-or-treating called Costume Quests.
Perfect.
Yes, so Costume Quest, for anyone doesn't know, came out about 11 years ago. So, yeah, back in October 2010. It's a Double Fine Productions game, and it came out pretty much on a whole bunch of stuff. PC, PS3, Xbox 360, as well as mobile platforms. So I remember when this game was announced back then that everyone's like, what the hell? Double Fine's making an RPG? That's really, really weird. But when you get into it, it's makes sense, makes so much sense. And I only played probably about the first third of the game. It's not a long game, but I kind of just wanted to re-experience, the tone and the characters and the comedy and everything, because I have beaten this game in the past, and I've beaten the sequel a couple times actually, and I beat the sequel a couple times, and I'm a huge fan of this game. It's one of my favorite kind of little bite-sized RPGs that I've ever played. It's just really, really funny. The way they weave the costume mechanics into the battle mechanics, I think, is just absolutely genius. It's a really great RPG for beginners as well and kids. It's not super easy, but it's also not super hard, and it's very forgiving when you have to retry. And what I realized is, I mentioned it before with Underhero, and we talked about Echo Generation. The more and more I realize, I'm talking about these games that play like Paper Mario, or I guess to correct that, they play like Mario RPG. And it just really made me realize this week how influential Super Mario RPG actually was. It's kind of wild. I don't think it was the first game ever to include some action element in a turn-based battler. I'm not sure. I'm just covering myself there, but it's definitely the one that set off and influenced so many people.
Yeah.
But going back to Costume Quest, I think the way they weave Halloween into everything is just great. Like I mentioned before, you literally go trick-or-treating, and you could go up to a door and you get candy, which is the currency of the game, or you get a battle from an enemy, and it's just
Cool.
like, it's so cool. And it's just so funny. They made an animated series from it as well. Unfortunately, I've never seen that. And I think the sequel, which came out 4 years later, also around Halloween as well, I think is even better. That came out it was like cross-generation, so that was even on more platforms. But yeah, I'm just absolutely adore this game. And I did read one YouTube comment that just made me, you'll see what this comment is. So someone said, I played this game when I was 4, forgot the name. I'm so happy I remember it now.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm like, oh my God, that makes me feel so old seeing someone saying, it's like that situation when you're like, man, I can't remember that name of the game back in the 80s when I played as a kid, or early 90s. And we're getting old. We're getting old.
Yeah, like I saw the definition of this, generation, where they go, it's a generation that people don't have any memory of September 11. I'm like, whoa, what? Like,
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, isn't it?
kind of wild.
But
Like,
there was one final thing. I actually played this on backwards compatibility on Series X, and the game really didn't run very well. And I think it never ran well to begin with. So I ended up actually rebuying it on Steam because it was like $3 at the moment.
wow.
And it still runs at 30 frames a second.
Oh,
It's even
no.
on there. I'm like, come
Damn
on.
it.
Anyway, it's not a game you're playing for that kind of stuff, but I did find that
It's LA
funny,
Noir
so,
all over again.
yeah.
I gotta
anyway.
say with that, man, like I'm getting like such a snob with frame rate. Like there's outside of certain exceptions, like I'm getting so sick of games being like 30 frames per second. Just when it feels like it absolutely doesn't need to be. Like I probably won't be getting many games for the Switch anymore. But But no, that's awesome actually. I'd imagine the writing is amazing in Costume Quest, given Double Fine.
I think it's very good. It's very, when you're playing games where you're playing as kids, I think, and just like any kind of media, writing as kids talking is such a balancing act, and I think they nail it. There's a lot of sarcasm, but I think they nail it.
Yeah, I always
Awesome.
think South Park probably does it the best out of any media. Like, and it's been around for 20 plus years or 30 years, I guess. No, interesting. Yeah, and Double Fine's really weird for me. Like, I love the writing, and I'm a huge fan of good writing, and they genuinely have good writing. But I just never click with any of their games. But
Have you played Stacking? You should
No.
try that game. That's awesome. I love Stacking so much.
yeah, I just couldn't get into Psychonauts too. I'm 100% confident it's going to be a Game of the Year nominee. So I definitely
As it
wanted to
should
play
be.
it, but yeah, I don't know. It's never clicked with me. All right, cool. Well, that rounds us up